It has been amazing. The earthquake, tsunami, I think a word Craig used in his column yesterday. In college football, with the eventual and imminent Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, it's just a matter of when and how and all the details in between. I do know that the 8 teams that are left, the remnants of the Big 12, apparently have Bob Bowlesby has asked each of them that anything else that is said going forward, at least over the next maybe few hours or day, come through the Big 12 office. And I did see that Texas Tech or Oklahoma State's, maybe Texas Tech's president or maybe it was the AD, released kind of a statement, a little pep rally statement for the Red Raider fans that no matter what, we'll figure this out. I would think that right now, no matter what's being reported, oh, by the way, somebody had breaking news that Texas and Oklahoma were leaving the Big 12. Really? When did that happen?
Did you guys also know the Olympics are starting today? I just wanted to get on.
I didn't watch
out in front of everything.
Milwaukee won the NBA championship. So I get the impression, and I'm not going to act like I have all these deep sources, but I have a few, that what's happening right now, as should be happening, and really should be happening in the last 24 hours, everybody is trying to find out what is their value and or brand, if anything at all, with the remaining Power 5 conferences. Not going to be the SEC. So you find out, if you're Iowa State, do you really have an opportunity to hook into the Big Ten or Kansas, or does Texas Tech or Oklahoma State or Baylor and TCU, what Iowa State values, possible connections to the various conferences, and that you might not even get a text back, or you might not get a phone call back, or you might say, oh, really? And I think that's the due diligence. You'd like to have had a little heads up. I do know this. It seems like the mood within that conference call yesterday was apparently somewhat calm. I mean, there's some people pissed. But at the same time, that there are a lot of people not surprised at all that Texas is involved in what they're doing. And, of course, I know that if you're a UT fan, you get tired of hearing it's always UT's fault. But we understand who stirs the drink. But that Oklahoma doing and leaving in a lot of cases around that conference room last night and among the other leaders in the 8 remaining programs was like, man, this is kind of unlike you to do this. And so here we are. And whatever happens from this point forward, they're leaving. It's just a matter of when, and they're going to have to pay for it at some point, and it could be a very awkward next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I don't really know what to add on to what you're saying there. Yeah, they're leaving and they're gone, and that's going to be official soon enough. And what? Yeah, I mean, that's
what I was adding was at the beginning was that I do know that they're reaching out to various conferences to try to find out what of other interest, and they may not get phone calls back. You may not get text messages back. There's going to be a lot of speculation about who goes where and when and how, and in the bottom line, there's going to end up being 64 teams in the Power 5, and they're going to control college football. And I talked to somebody who's a former AD about this. The NCAA is going to lose complete control of the college football playoff. That's just a matter. That's imminent. That's out of a lot that happens, they're out of the picture, and it could be pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, Mark Emmert admitted as much the other day in saying that, look, the autonomy or the centralized NCAA model doesn't really work anymore, and it probably needs to be changed. And then we have this. Look, it's changing. It's changing rapidly, and Autonomy 5 or Autonomy 4 or whatever it's going to be and a 12-team playoff, the NCAA doesn't need to have control over much. I mean, because they're not really doing much right now. So, might as well, instead of spinning your wheels and hoping for the NCAA to change, you might need to throw a wrench in the machine. And when Greg Sankey came out very publicly and is saying the NCAA doesn't do this right, doesn't do that right, does it surprise you that his conference went out and added a couple teams in order to speed along the eventual demolition of the NCAA? No.
No, I mean, I think, the stuff today is the fact that apparently this has been going on for months and months now. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing is that, Del Conte and Castiglione or whoever have been orchestrating this for months behind the scenes. I mean, I saw that report today. I think that's pretty massive news and not all that surprising because this isn't a deal that you get done in a week's time. I definitely, and I don't think anyone else thought that they left Big 12 Media Days last week and then turned around and were like, you know what? Let's go make a phone call to the SEC. Of course, this has been going on for a while, but now we've got confirmation, or at least it appears so, that, yeah, there's been talks going on for months now. So, I don't know about the NCAA playoff and all of that. I mean, they need to fix the Big 12 first. What does that look like? Is that going to be the message from last night of these teams are going to stick together and go out there and maybe pillage some other teams from the AAC or some other conference? Are they going to potentially go reach out to the Arizona schools as much of a long shot as that might be? I mean, that's the story now. Yes, it's Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. That seems like it's not coming off the tracks. I mean, that's fully boring down on being finalized. So what do you do? I mean, last night the message was, according to the reports, that these 8 schools are going to stick together and move forward together and at least as best they can. But, the first team that gets a little bit of cold feet and wants to jump off into the deep end saying, well, we got to watch out for ourselves, just like Texas and Oklahoma did, they could screw up the whole boat. But then again, there are the grantor rights agreements. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know about the college football playoff. I mean, for all I know, we could be moving to where there's this group, the SEC and some other super conferences, and they have their own thing. And then we have like a third playoff tournament that's the FCS, the super elite or whatever, and then, the middle ground. I don't know. I don't know what all that's going to look like, but I know this. The Big 12 doesn't even know what their conference looks like past this year. So that's kind of the utmost importance. And the direction they take will be fascinating because all it takes is one of the 8 to, like I said, get cold feet and say, we got to make a move for the whole thing to crumble as far as the Big 12 goes. But if they stick together and they truly, don't go behind each other's backs like their 2 former brethren obviously were doing the entire time, then maybe they can salvage something together and keep those 8 teams afloat in the conversation at least. But, yeah, there's a lot of maneuvering that's going to be going on. I can't imagine the phone bills that are going to be coming out of the Big 12 this month.
I'll tell you what, we'll hear from Brent Zwerneman. He's going to join us from the Houston Chronicle. He broke the story on Wednesday that both Texas and Oklahoma had reached out to the SEC or vice versa, and it might have been, who knows who made the first call. But I do know this as well, and it was a good text. I just got a text from the 254. Are we supposed to believe that Bowlesby, the guy that worked directly with the SEC commissioner to create the expanded playoff, didn't know about this? Come on, man. What are the 8 remaining teams saying to Bowlesby right now? I'm telling you right now, Bob Bowlesby, this information kicked him between the legs. And let me tell you why. Why then would he get up on the big stage last week at Big 12 Media Days and go into this topic and into this discussion and on various radio shows, including ours, and on various television stations, and he thought, and again, he's wrong, and it could be something that he loses his job. He might always look stupid over this. He had no clue, even if he's working with Greg Sankey. Even if Texas and Oklahoma have been talking about this for 6 months behind closed doors, whatever it is, Bob Bowlesby is a relationship person. You may not agree with that relationship with Baylor or whoever, but this to him probably will never be something he can forget because he sat there in front of us, and who are people who are politicians, some commissioners are. I think this to Bob Bowlesby was like basically getting stabbed in the back.
Well, and it's to me, I don't know how you could feel any other way.
How could Texas and Oklahoma? Here's one of the questions. He was up on that stage. They're there. They let him get up on that stage. If you have something going on, you don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but wouldn't you want to let him, like, hey?
I can just tell you there's professionally times in my life and career, and sometimes even recently, where you want to tell somebody like, hey, look, I can't give you details right now, but you don't need to say this. Just don't say this. And that could have been avoided, but looping him in means maybe he torpedoes it, because then, look, who's the first person who gets fired in all this is Bob Bowlesby, or fired, or he's like, if there's no Big 12 conference in a year, then Bob Bowlesby doesn't have a job. Now, I don't think he's going to wait too long to get one, but even still, there's no Big 12 office, there's no Big 12 commissioner.
Yeah.
I had the thought yesterday that he had to have known something. And I believed that. And, you're saying otherwise, and I'll believe that. That's fine. But I was of the impression that, how could you possibly not know anything, especially if it was going on for 6 months, according to that report. But, without knowing the full, real, concrete details, amazing job by Texas and OU to be so secretive that not even Bob Bowlesby caught a hint of this, despite all of his conversations with the parties involved. Makes him look like a complete buffoon. And I would feel like a buffoon if I was him, especially after last week. And, what's just kind of gross about it is I understand Oklahoma and Texas had to do what they had to do, and they had to lie here and say this and here, but it's like what was the point of all these meetings? What was the point of all these hours of meetings about the Big 12 and about the conference and its future? And the whole time, these hours of meetings that you were having, two of the people that were probably sitting there and had opinions and were saying this or that, just the whole time knew they weren't even going to be a part of it. That's just so foul. And I'm not mad at OU and Texas. I know a lot of people are, and rightfully so. I just think that's gross. I think it's underhanded, but I also know that's business. So I to an extent, I can't even fault them for it because they were just sneakier than everybody else, and I don't agree with how it went down. I do think it makes Bowlesby look like an idiot, but I don't think he could have known and then just operated like normal because there would have been a revolt from the other 8. And no matter how powerful Oklahoma and Texas are, if he has any desire to be involved with the Big 12 moving forward, he couldn't have made a move like that because he would have been out in 2 seconds. He'd be out right now if that would have been the case. So, I don't know how they kept it so under wraps other than just being really good at being secretive. I don't know why they felt the need to put everybody through the charade of the last year of just meetings and plans and what's this going to look like. And
well, A&M did. Right?
A&M didn't really put him through a charade.
Really. They let everybody know that
they let everybody know. Listen,
they had agreed much earlier, though. They
played in the Big 12 after it was known they were going to the SEC.
Yeah, I understand. And Oklahoma and Texas might be doing that this year, right?
Right, but they didn't let. This only came out because somebody reported it. Brett Zorneman put it out. Otherwise, we wouldn't even know about it right now.
No, but A&M had been talking to the SEC for a lengthy amount of time.
So what happened
that didn't happen the day before they announced it.
Well, so remember the AD Bill Byrne was the year before was very pro Big 12. And so when A&M was like, yeah, Nebraska and Colorado, you guys got a great idea. We're going to go to the SEC. Bill Byrne put the kibosh on it. And then A&M stayed stewing for the next year. And then when Bill Byrne went to Europe for a month-long vacation, they got together and said, listen, this guy's not speaking in our best interest. We're going to the SEC. Here's the deal they offered us last year. We're taking it. We're gone. And Missouri's coming with us. And that's basically what happened. They had to get Bill Byrne out of the room because he put the kibosh on it. But A&M, I think, was pretty upfront the whole time is that they were unhappy.
But to your point, they had to have at least initial conversations that people weren't aware of to at least get the ball rolling. I get that. But this is pretty much official already. This isn't,
no, they're done.
Oh, hey, we're expressing our intention. I mean, that's how they're phrasing it. But, basically we're just waiting for ink to dry at this point. That's all. So it's a little bit different in that regard because I do think A&M was a little bit more out in the open and maybe misremembering. But, a lot of wasted time. A lot of wasted time for a lot of people. But I know that the two parties involved, they don't care. And that's why they're making the move that they are. And, from their standpoint, I get it. I just think you could have probably handled it differently.
I think the fact that there have been meetings involving the upcoming television or lack of an extension of television, a lot of those meetings that have been out there, and same people who are leaving, two of the people leaving, Texas and Oklahoma, were a part of those meetings. And also, hey, and listen, when it's, now you wonder, and I don't know if this is anything that makes any sense or not, but ESPN runs the Longhorn network. ESPN runs the SEC network. ESPN also runs the Big 12 network. Now, Fox is involved in certain ways as well, and CBS with various conferences. So when the ESPN said, hey, we're not going to negotiate the extension of the Big 12 television contract, was it because they knew that Texas and Oklahoma were most likely bolting the conference?
I wonder if that was, or I don't know, it's a chicken and egg thing because what happened first? They're not going to renegotiate and Texas and OU bolt, or Texas and OU bolt and the Big 12 isn't going to renegotiate?
Or third is that, I know, Brent, third is that they knew that Texas and Oklahoma were looking at this and had been talking about this, and so they then said, hey, we need to see how this works before we extend the contract, if at all.
Yeah.
Brent Zwerneman from the Houston